Hello again, Internet. I honestly didn't even look at the time at the end of the video, or I did, but I in one eye, out the other? I guess there's not a phrase for this for vision. Anyway, I don't remember, so I have no idea how long it took, but I'm done. All 154 references are updated. Spoilers, every single one was just to be home. There was no need to ever do a variable kind of location like there was with inventories. It was all, right, pet activities like crafting, and the trader, which only has this one usage when you're trading items. Again, in the future, maybe we'll have him pull out of the basement, but for now, it's just going to come out of your home. Yeah, no items. That's where we kind of had that instance last time was, a box. You open a box, where should the item go? It should go in whatever location the box was, that you opened. So that's where we had a variable location. But for all the cases where we were calling lose item, there was never a need to have variable location. So in some senses, you might say, well, then you didn't need this location variable. You could have just always pulled it from home. But in other senses, I want this to be a useful function. I don't want to be in a trap later where I call it thinking it will do what I want. It's like, oh, good, yeah, we're in the basement, we're doing some basement code. Oh, yeah, lose item, great, I already have that function. And then it doesn't ask for a location, so I don't think about the fact that I need it, right? That would be bad. So this function is now generally useful. We're not using the full set of features, but they're there for when/if we need them in the future. Right, and then it's complaining about MySQL stuff. No one cares. So we should be able to throw things out in the basement. Let's try. I think something I want to do first is go home, just to make sure that this does work and we don't delete things from the wrong room, or however you want to think about it, is we'll do this alphabetical. Look at how many sugars. 2 sugars in here, okay, and in the basement there were 3. So let's throw out 2 of them. I don't know, let's be weird and throw out those 2. I don't think I'll be able to tell. So that one is, so there's only 1 in the basement, so I think that's fine. I mean, if it was going to delete too many, I wouldn't expect there to be, right, like the possible fear is, well, maybe it deleted 2 in the house as well. But if it was going to delete more than it should have, I would expect actually the error to be more from the same room, more likely. I don't know. I'm going to check anyway. But I think we're good, is what I'm saying. Yeah, here's my 2 sugars. We still got them. So great. So you can throw things out. You can prepare things in the basement. All that is working. Oh, I want that loading indicator. But then the next thing to do is going to be to make the functionality to move things around. And I was about to say the API endpoint, and I feel like I just throw that out there. Who knows what an API endpoint is? I don't know. I don't know the programming skill level of a viewer for this. I guess I should consider my target audience. I don't know who that is. I think right now it's people of SciPets who are casually interested in how it works and probably stop watching these videos after 2 minutes because they're like, oh my god, what's an API? Don't worry, it's just an application programming interface. It's fine. Doesn't that tell you so much? Isn't knowing the meaning of the acronym helpful? It isn't. Let's code up this thing. So the waiting thing, that will be, again, I'm going to look at the home, and it's going to be, oh, and that's the other thing of all these functions were just copy pasted with no modification, and I don't like that. Something here needs to be abstracted away, but it's going to change. That's the other thing. Some of these are going to change, load inventory won't be the same because we're going to have to start accounting for pagination. Sorting is going to be different. I just took sorting out entirely for the basement right now because it's going to be totally different, right? Didn't I delete that sort thing? No, I didn't. It's still here. I'm going to comment that out. I don't want it showing up and me thinking it works. It should never show up, and then I'll be like, why isn't it there? And then I'll look and be like, oh, because it's not done. So yeah, that's going to have to operate totally differently, but this stuff is the same. It is the same. I just don't know how to abstract it out. I mean, I could maybe pull this out. I guess that is the thing to do. If we pull this part out, there's going to have to be some input-output business of it will output what mode it's in, and then this thing will respond to the mode. But also the selected items. It's just going to be interesting. Maybe I should try. Maybe we'll try. We'll try it together and see what happens. Let me put the loading thing in first, because again, that's easy. Yeah. It's that right there. Like, fine, right? That's a fine amount of code to copy paste. Don't need to feel bad about that. But this part I feel bad about. So let's split that out. Let's make a thing. I guess it's going to be called inventory control, and we'll see what happens. And I'll do the same thing for the house, right? That's the whole point. We'll have the same functions in the house, trashing, cooking, and then the only difference that will have to be put in is like, is there a feeding option? That's kind of what I started doing in the very beginning, was like, no, we can do more, and then realized, no, I can't do that, right? So I don't know. Is it like multiple choice SAT, tests where you should just do the answer was your first guess, right? Isn't that what they say? I don't know. It's been a long time since I was in high school. Oh, what a nice thing to not have to care about anymore. Being an adult is mostly great. Paying for dentist work is less great. And having your appendix try to kill you. I would recommend, if at all possible, to not allow your appendix to try to kill you. I have terrible news. You can't do anything about it. At least it's known. I'm sure there's all sorts of ideas that are as effective as how do you stop sneezing or having hiccups or whatever. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm sorry. Component. What are we doing? Inventory control. Inventory control. Great. I sang a little song. How embarrassing. Let's keep going. So there should be a component called inventory control in here. And we will add in yes. So let's add in, is it this whole thing? I think it's this whole thing. I think it's this whole thing. And this is going to be app inventory control. And more things are going to have to be in here for sure. But here's inventory control. And let's go to the house as well. We'll do these simultaneously. So simultaneously that it might be worth having two tabs open. So let's go to the home. Same thing. We have the same set of buttons, except there's also the feeding button. So I just cut that, so I'm going to paste it in later to the other one. So this is, yeah, this is all good. So we want app inventory control, and we're going to have like show feeding, or allow feeding, I guess. Allow feeding, yeah, equals true. Okay. And then that will be an input here, right? So this is, again, this is a super basic input use, right? Nothing complicated, it's just a toggle. Can we do this thing, yes or no? When things like that start to get, it's easy to go too far with that, where you have like one component with like 50 different things that configure how it works. At that point, it's like, why, like, just make it, break that out into like 4 components that maybe each do, 20 the things or whatever, however that math would fall out. And it's not going to be an even division anyway, probably. But, it's really easy to end up with a component where you shove more and more functionality into it. And really at that point, you should be splitting it into multiple components. So the moment I have a little toggle like this of like, here's a Boolean that changes what goes in here, I'm like, where are we? We're starting down. It's the first step, right? It's the first step on that path. But it'll probably be fine. So I think I called it show feed button. I don't know. Did I? Let's find out. What did I call it? That's what I get for talking. Allow feeding. That's because I waffled. Allow feeding. Waffles. And that button, I actually don't remember where that button goes now. It's after cook and combine. Great. And we want it in 2 cases. If mode is inventory feeding, that part can stay, because your mode will never become inventory feeding. It's not like we don't need any additional logic for that. Where we need the extra logic is, I accidentally deleted it already. This button for feed. That's the part that we will not show. Yeah, that would be disabled, but also only if allow feeding, can't type. Right, otherwise don't show that button at all. And then it's disabled based on whether or not pets are available, which is an interesting thing. That suggests, right, this thing isn't going to be responsible for getting pets, but it needs to know whether or not it has pets. So that's going to be another input. And actually, that brings up an interesting point. I like this a little better. We don't need an input of allow, we do, because it's possible that pets aren't passed in because they're not there yet, but we do still want to show the control. But if pets are passed in, we definitely, what I was going to say is we don't need to allow feeding. If there are pets, we allow feeding. We show the button. If there aren't, then we don't. Except it could be that your inventory loads in before your pets. And if that happens, I want to let you mess with your inventory while your pets are loading. I mean, honestly, that doesn't happen very often. The requests, you know, both fire off, and I think it tends to be that the pets are ready before the inventory. It's just less data to retrieve, probably, or maybe that's something about my local environment. Anyway, I'm going to go with this. Again, you know, what are you expecting? You can't trust that things go exactly how you expect. So, right, same with user input. I've seen people say this too, like, don't trust user input, I like to say a lot, but don't trust any input is perhaps a more fair thing. So anyway, pets are going to be here. Let's see what they are, how they're typed up in here, because it's going to be the same. It's this, right? And while we're here, so I've copied that into my clipboard, PS, but let's pass in the pets that we have. Pets equals pets. Oops, yeah, this is what we want. Okay. So we'll also allow pets in. So let's see what happens in the home. I think lots of things aren't going to work because we have this mode variable that doesn't really apply. Yeah, we're just going to have tons of errors right now. Allow feeding is a known property of inventory control component. Sure it is. It's input. I made it right here. Did I use the wrong annotation of input? No, that's the right one. Whatever. If that's, allow feeding isn't a known property. Allowing feeding. There we go. That's my mistake. My bad, as they used to say. So this is going to get somewhere, but I'm expecting it to error out again. I would also expect this to error out. Although nice to see that. Yeah, that's funny. So we see the inventory, but not the thing. Yeah, and the problem is like a bunch of those things. Yeah, browsing is undefined, right? Like all those enums that we moved around. You know, this thing inventory mode enum isn't loaded up here. The mode in general, like all those things. Mia. She's so needy today. I don't know why. It's cute, but like I can't right now. I'm doing a thing. All these, I think, all get moved into the inventory control, right? Are we waiting on Ajax? Maybe not that one. I don't know. These ones for sure. Let's copy these. Oh, but not inventory selected. That's done on the inventory thing. That's another thing that's gonna have to be passed back and forth. These two. Need to go into the inventory control. Yep. Okay. And mode is going to be something that we actually want outputted because we need to change the behavior of the inventory and the pets whenever the mode changes. So we're going to want to output that back to the containing component so that it can react when that thing has changed. So let's do that. We'll have an output. And this is where I was saying, is like, did I use the right input? Because you can accidentally select compiler source core. I don't know when that's used. Compiler source. I don't know. We want that one. And this will be called mode output, except we actually just want it to be called mode from the point of view of the component, right? Like we can't have two things called mode internally, but Angular has provided you a way to like, yeah, your variable is called mode output, but from the outside perspective, it will be referred to as mode, so we can just call it mode and it'll be fine. So anyway, this will equal an event emitter, and it's, yep, that's the one, and it's going to emit inventory mode enums. On init, I think we actually, yeah, it's fine. On mode input, we will, the moment it's initialized, we will output, I think. We'll emit the current mode. Can you actually do that here? Can we do this dot mode? Does it take a, no, I didn't think it, I was worried it probably didn't. Constructor is async as a Boolean, okay. I mean, okay. So we'll emit immediately, you're in the, what, the browsing mode, which I don't know that we need to output that, but that is the default state, so let's throw it out there. And then all of these things in the house that we had that had to do with changing mode, cook for real, trash for real, feed, all this stuff, right? This now all, which we'd previously copied out into the other component, is all going to go away. It's going to go into this one component. Waiting on Ajax, that is a thing we need, okay. Okay, let's add it. Public, whatever. Waiting on Ajax equals false. And that might be something else we need to output. I think we will. This inventory. Yep, do cook for real. Yeah, we need to know what you have selected, so we will need to know the inventory, which we should type the same. This is getting a little complicated here, but that's okay. That's an input. Yeah, this is why, again, when we have so much communication like this, so much back and forth communication, it feels a little silly to me here's the cat again. She's thinking about it. She's near me. She'll probably jump up at any moment. Don't do it, Mia. When we have this many inputs and outputs, it feels a little silly to have it as a component. I don't know if a service, she's meowing at me because I'm specifically rotating the chair so that she can't get up. I don't know if a service is more appropriate. I don't know. It feels a little weird to have this many inputs and outputs, but this may just be the only way. We'll need the API. That is a truth. So, right, as we again, we're repeating some of what we did before because I was being stubborn, I think, in not splitting it out. Load inventory. Oh, that's interesting. That's something else too. When does that happen? So here's something that can happen. From outside of this component, in the basement, when you click that filter, to sort, sorry, when you click that sort, and later filters, we're going to later have filters. I want to filter by name or whatever, right? Just show me all my fluffs. I don't want to scroll through in any kind of order. We're going to be loading inventory from outside there. Here, we're going to want to trigger a reload as well. So I guess we'll just emit that as an output of like, hey, the inventory changed. You, parent component, you decide what you want to do about it. They're all going to decide to reload the inventory. And then the new inventory will come back in here because it's an input and it'll be updated and it'll be fine and it'll be great. The waiting on Ajax thing, though, is weird. I think what's going to happen is the moment it's done, it says, yeah, we're not waiting, but by the way, I'm done. And the parent component is going to say, oh no, but we are waiting again. So we kind of need this waiting on Ajax thing. It's going to be two-way binding, which we can set up. Right? Either component can say, hey, we're waiting on Ajax responses right now. Is this making sense? Maybe it helps to show things in the house. Well, again, this one doesn't cause a reload, but in the basement it's going to. And that's outside of this control, right? This control is just, this has a ton of the shared logic, but this logic isn't going to be shared. Again, this one works really simply. The basement one's going to be more complicated. And then this part is shared, but it's like 3 lines of code. We don't need to make a component for that. It's fine. So the thing that's interesting, again, is just they need to know from each other. Like either one of them can trigger a reload, and they need to be able to pass that information back and forth. Yeah, that's very interesting. So let's do that. That'll be an output, and we will call it inventory changed. And it's, oh, I didn't do this properly. That's a new event emitter, and of no type. We pass no data. It really is just like, it happened. You don't need to know anything else. You just need to know it happened, right? So there's inventory changed. And that's what we're going to do. So if we succeed here, then inventory changed. We need to emit the inventory changed. And also, by the way, I think we're done waiting on Ajax. Someone else is going to say otherwise. If we error, then the inventory didn't change, so we don't need to emit that, but we are done, right, waiting on Ajax. Same done here. So this waiting on Ajax is false, and this inventory changed, we emit. No value, it's just an event that it happened. Inventory selected, we do need to know that, huh? Yeah. That's going to be another double. I'll show you how that's done. Actually, I'll have to look it up, unless I've done it somewhere else in the code, but inventory selected, that's a number, defaults to 0. You can make things be both an input and an output, but I think you do like this, and you make that an event emitter. I'll go check. It's funny, it's finicky, it's naming conventions, and if you don't do it exactly right, it's not going to work. So I'll look it up. But let's hook up in the house. So on this inventory control, if we had inventory change, then we're going to call do update or we'll just call do inventory changed. That's fine. And then somewhere in here, we'll have do inventory changed, and we're just going to put in back in this logic, right, that I had here. That's the logic we want. Reload the inventory because we heard that the inventory changed. Sorry, that can't be private. It's got to be public because the HTML side needs to know about it. And then this loading inventory, this is where we should be saying, I guess it's okay. We don't need to say we're waiting on Ajax because while inventory loads, we hide the whole inventory thing, all the buttons, everything, right? That's controlled in the home. We say, if inventory is null, then show this. We don't even see the inventory control. So it actually doesn't need to know. So maybe that doesn't need to be an input. But it does need to be an output because click item depends on the mode, which as mentioned, we do need to know when the mode changed. So let's code up that as well. So we have, by the way, did the mode change? Then we need to call set mode. And $event is a special thing. And let's do something else. We're going to split this up onto multiple lines because it's getting awfully long. Okay, so $event is a special Angular thing that means whatever is the value that came in from that event emitter comes in as $event. So we need to do set mode. Interesting, that function is apparently declared elsewhere. I don't care about it because I don't want it as declared elsewhere. I want it here. So set mode expecting a mode enum, right? Or inventory mode enum. Oh, I'm being stupid. So it's going to be mode, which is a mode inventory. This is another difference between languages, is that in PHP, did I do this right? I guess what's going on? Did I rename it right? Inventory mode enum. I'm sorry, inventory mode enum. That does make more sense. Okay, then this dot mode equals the mode given to us. Okay, and that'll get we're gonna have mode, which is one of those. I'm getting rid of public on all these because they're bothering me because I'm not doing it other places. Public is default. It's fine. Okay. Stop. Okay. So now we have a thing to set the mode out here, which will help for all these other things that care about what is the current mode, right? You clicked an item. Well, what's the mode? What effect does it have? Are we browsing? Well, then we show this thing. Oh, we're not? Okay, then we select it. Inventory selected being incremented, that was the thing that I was talking about before, where we're going to need to both pass that in and get it back out. So inventory selected is inventory selected. So that's the thing you do, is like, oh, it's both, right? Parentheses is it's an output, square brackets is it's an input, and then square brackets and parentheses is an input. Unfortunately, you can't do it the other way. You can't put the parens outside. And the funny thing I heard online, has it changed? Maybe you can now? Oh my gosh, I don't know. The thing I'd heard at the time, I'm really curious now to know if we can do both, was the banana goes in the box. The box is the square, right? Banana goes in the box. I thought that's good. So anyway, inventory selected. And then let's see, I think if I've already got one, we called that mode output, which may have been dangerous. Changed? No, that's the same thing. So I just have to look this up. It's like component, we want Angular component input and output, and it's a naming convention thing. I've done it at work, so that's where I would honestly, I just like look at existing code I've already done and be like, oh yes, that's how it's done, because this in particular, I remember, was very hard to find an example. Like, there's complicated ways you can do it, And then the easy way is just follow the naming convention. And it's like, oh, maybe you should do it the easy way. I might need to search for two-way binding, but I know that finds a lot of things that tell you the super hard way. Just trying to see if there's even any example here. I don't think there is. Okay, component, we want a two-way binding. Ideally, I'd like to find a link I've already visited, but maybe we won't be so lucky. And again, so yeah, this is the thing, right? So this is a built-in thing. A lot of Angular or a lot of HTML input fields like input. Actually, I guess it's just inputs. Is that right? Yeah. Anyway, they have built in this two-way binding thing. So then you're like, wait, I've seen that in built-in ones. I want to have it. To the username, to the input. How do you do it to both? Change. Maybe it is change. Creating two-way binding. Introduce an event binding with the same name plus a change suffix. That's the thing I was looking for. So input has that, output has change. That makes me worry. Okay, good. I said output, not change. So it's got to have change at the end. So we have output, inventory, selected, change, equals event emitter of integers. Or sorry, not of integers, I'm thinking PHP again, of numbers. And then I think that we need to call that though, like we have to let it know. Yeah, if you change it, we also need to emit the changed value. So that's the other thing. So anytime that we reference this, for example, here, whoops, right, here we go, we set it to 0. Then we also need to say this inventory selected change, we need to emit the new inventory selected value. And what they were suggesting was putting this in a function so that anytime you change it, you just call that one function and then you don't have to keep writing these two things. That sounds like great advice to me. So we'll say set inventory selected to 0, and then we'll make a function called set inventory selected. It takes n, which is a number. I don't know. I was like, well, I kind of wanted to call it number, but you can't do that. Great, set it to n, and actually in this case, it's fine. I'll omit n. We know what we're doing. For objects, whatever, but it's coming in as a primitive. It's fine. Okay, set inventory selected. Great. I don't think it's actually done anywhere else here, but I don't know. Maybe in the future we would. So great. Inventory control. We're going to need to do the same thing in the basement. Let's see if the house is working yet. It's not working, and it says why. It says class constructor event emitter cannot be invoked without new. I made that mistake earlier and caught it. I must have made it another time and not call it. Oh, like right here, apparently. I don't know how I keep making that mistake. Load, load, load. Boop, boop. Oh, that's the wrong thing. That's a home. No, that's home. That's what we wanted. Failed to execute observe parameter 1. Okay, that's the changing other stuff. Can't read cooking of undefined. Here we go. Home component line 9. The HTML. Because I took out yeah, this stuff. Inventory mode enum I ended up like taking out entirely and moving it into the other thing, but we actually do want it here, right? That was that whole thing. And in basement, I'm going to need to do all that the same stuff, right? This guy is going to need to have inventory equals inventory, right? We're going to have to set all that stuff up here too. Oh, I shouldn't have done that because now it's reloading. Oh, but look, I saw something. So let's see. This is home. I think I saw the feeding button wasn't present. Yeah, that's a problem. So from the home component, allow feeding is set to true. That's the default value, but we overwrite it. And then, oh, allowing feeding, that was that typo. So that's why we weren't seeing it. Okay. Again, I caught that because it was the wrong color. It was white. And that pointed out to me. Oh, it's interesting. White you'd usually think would be an okay color. It's the color of text. I don't know. You recognize it in context. So, okay, so if we click feed, we're still in observing mode. That's a problem, right? So we were supposed to emit that mode out to home, which would then know, oh, we're in feeding mode now, but thinks we're still in browsing mode, which is why we're getting this behavior rather than selecting things. So That's going to have to be fixed. Let's fix that. Do feed sets the mode, but we don't emit because we have a mode output. Yeah, we need to do that. So that's another case where we should say find this set mode, and we'll do it to, in this case, inventory mode enum feeding, and then we'll make a set mode function. I guess we can put it down here. Set mode, where we put in the inventory mode enum, and this mode output emit the mode. Whoops, I've somehow typed more parens than intended. All right, equals mode, and then every place in here that we change mode, right? That should be the only place now, is in that function. So we want this dot set mode. Getters and setters, those are a thing, right? We've seen them on the PHP side for, right? All these entities have get pet, set created by, right? Now we're seeing this is the sort of reason you do that. You're like, oh, I want to wrap up a little more extra logic. I need a few more checks, right? I want to make sure that everything goes through this consistent interface, and that's when you start getting getters and setters all over the place, right? Like 80% of these getters and setters or something, and probably not even ever using the functionality of them. But for the ones you are, you want it already in place. It's just the system to have. We don't have that here. Waiting on Ajax is a thing that we might omit. Again, it seems like we don't need to so far. Where are other changes to mode? Here we go. Set mode. Here's another one. Set mode. Have any more? Looks like that's it. Pressing F3 and I'm not finding any more. All right, let's see what happens here. I wonder how long this video's been going. Again, I don't pay attention to the time. It's something that comes up at work. When I was acting more as manager, I would always drive my boss crazy because he'd be like, I would say it was like, I'm agnostic as to when this product is released. I just want it to be good. But he, of course, has timing deadlines in mind. And so that was a thing that you'd be like, I really hate when you say that you're agnostic about the launch date. You shouldn't be. And I was like, I don't know. Anyway, that's not my role anymore for, I don't know if it's reasons like that. He didn't say stop doing it. I said I'm stopping doing it, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, those are the sorts of reasons maybe I did not enjoy the role, all those little things. So if we go into feeding mode, do we select things now? And if we click a pet, so we are, because that mode is being emitted, seems to be working. Let's feed sugar to Erasmus. You fed Erasmus sugar. Very interesting, actually, because that means that feeding logic must be in the house, right? Cook and combine. Let's cook and combine some of this stuff. Sugar and blackberries. I think I saw an error. Can't read filter of null. Inventory component do cook for real. So we've got an error. Inventory control line 46. This is coding. Does this seem tedious? This is what it is. 46. This inventory filter. Why was that? So it's saying you can't call filter on undefined, but we know we have inventory here. We have it. Inventory is the input. We're at home. We know it's passed in at all because things are working in general, right? From home, let's see, home. Oh, I'm not passing in the inventory. Well, that'll do it then. Equals inventory. I think this shouldn't have a default value. Pets can allow, like you have to pass in inventory. Mode you don't pass in, inventory selected you don't have to pass in, but you can. Do you have to pass it in? I guess you do. That shouldn't be a default there either. That should definitely be 0. Inventory selected is inventory selected, and that defaults to 0. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's see what happens. So I think this will be good now. Let's try preparing. Again, we don't care about that error. I should just find out how to hide that. We don't care about these errors about my pet. Got 2 of them because I got 2 pets. Whatever. So let's cook and combine sugar and blackberries. That was interesting. I got my purple rock candies. Great. Okay, so I think everything is working here. What's the other option we haven't done? Throw out. Let's throw out a wheat. I don't care so much because this is my local, right? It's not my real wheat on the game. Even if it was, I just give it back. Actually, I wasn't counting. I think I did have more wheat than purple candies. Let's try it again. I'm going to throw out both of them. There should be no wheat left. Yeah, okay, great. And if we go to the basement, that's probably still not working. Oh, it thinks it's working. I'm sure it's not because, yeah, right, we don't have that mode stuff all set up, so we got to do that. So similar to before, we're going to have mode, waiting on Ajax, inventory selected. All these things are going to need to be in the basement. We can close, no we can't. We can close inventory control. We don't need that anymore. We've got that working. What we need is basement. Okay, let me order these somewhat. We don't need two of those. Waiting on Ajax yet. Mode, we already had mode. Starts in browsing. I think actually we don't know that. It gets set by the component now, right? Inventory selected. Okay, so everything, mostly everything was already here. Fine. If we go back to home and see how this is done, we'll probably copy paste this. But we're going to make some tweaks. Allow feeding, that's false. We don't even need to pass it. We don't need to send any pets. Great. When inventory is changed, yes, I will want to know about that. I'll want to know about setting mode. Okay, so same sort of thing here. We're going to have a set mode, and it's going to take a mode, and it's going to be an inventory mode. And it's going to say this mode is mode, right, to set the local version of the mode. And then we're also going to want the reload inventory thing, which was do inventory change. Do inventory changed. And that does, as I recall, just that inside. So, okay, we can get rid of all sorts of stuff. Do click item we do still need. Cook for real. Trash for real, trash, browse. We don't need any of those anymore. Those aren't called. We do need to know about clicking items. We need to know about load item. Okay, and then let's see what the home component's definition of do inventory change was. Yeah, I thought it was something super simple, just to clear the waiting on Ajax. That makes sense. And again, I think, oh, excuse me, I thought there was, what else is in here? It takes a partial observer. Close next, or complete. I think complete is what we want. We can say if it completes for any reason, then that's fine. Stop the Ajax. We don't need to explicitly have failed and succeeded, just like when you're done at all. Gosh. Let me look this up because I'm afraid now. It's, what was it? Next, error complete. I want a comparison. Error and complete events demystified. Sure, I guess I feel mystified right now. Well, this website is mystified as well. Here I encourage you to review. Subjects are complete. Once completed, cannot emit any longer. This is part of the contract they abide by. Depending on the logic and flow of your application, you might decide not to complete. Create a new subject. So I know what they're talking about. Okay, complete, finally done. Yes, tell me about this. When using finally, the callback is going to be called in every situation that causes unsubscription. That's when complete and error are received by observers, but also email and unsubscribe. What about done? Finally always happens when it terminates, including errors. Complete only happens when it terminates without errors. Okay, so we wanted finally, not complete. And the thing they're talking about when it terminates, some things don't. So like, as an example, if you were like, whenever a click happens, that never stops because you don't know when clicks are going to stop coming in. When you make a request to an API, once they send you the response, you know it's done. So the logic internally for this thing says, I'm done. There's nothing more to do. I know that guaranteed. So they said use finally. It doesn't seem to like that I've done that. Closed. Next error complete. Well, that's interesting because there doesn't seem to be a finally. So we may be finding information about an old version. Because yeah, that's not the syntax you do anymore for these things. That's deprecated. Maybe it is, or here's where they say complete, whereas finally is handled like this. Dot finally. Okay, I'm learning. I'm a neural network processing machine. Okay, whatever, sorry. Okay, well, it didn't seem like that either. the problem with this RxJS stuff, they change the library like all the time, and so I can just never keep up. So you know what, we're going to go back to what it was before. This is probably part of why I'm doing it in a less efficient way, because they changed the library. It didn't used to be that you structured it this way at all. They've changed it. Now I'm finding old information that's saying things that don't even exist anymore. Fine, I don't care that hard about saving a single line of code. I'm just gonna keep on going, and maybe I'll learn about it some other day, or maybe I won't, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Let's copy this. Someone out there who knows RxJS is very angry at me for doing that. Hopefully they'll get over it. Okay, subscribe, great, done. Or again, maybe they got rid of that whole notion. Maybe complete now acts the same way. If I didn't have people watching me here, oh look, we've pulled up YouTube. We're not watching that right now, but thank you. I would just experiment with it and add a complete and force things to error and stuff like that, but I don't know. Honestly, that's being a little generous to myself. I might not do that. I might be like, that sounds like an awful lot of work to save a single line of code that doesn't, yeah, I don't know. Is that laziness? I can't tell. You decide. Set mode, inventory, do inventory change. I think we're all good. Let's see if the basement works. So I want to cook and combine that item. Okay, now I want to throw out all my sugar. Well, let's leave one. That's an excited noise, can you tell? Everything is working. Okay. That was an awful long time to not let you move items between rooms, right? It's going to be a new button here, though, right? So that was, I was going to mention that earlier, and I thought of it, but I don't remember what I was talking about at the time. There's going to be a new button here for, hey, I want to move this item, right? That's what the whole thing is, and it's going to be, for now, since there's only 2 locations, I guess it will just be, where should the move to be, right? Like in the future, again, as I was mentioning, maybe you'll throw things into space from museum or to the volcano or something. Actually, museum would be an interesting option. I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say volcano. Even though there's never going to be a volcano, I don't think. I don't know why I would say never. Maybe 3 years from now, there will be a funny suggestion that involves throwing items into a volcano. I don't know. Not the plan for the immediate future. But anyway, in the future, when there are multiple locations, we might want one of those like drop down, like the button is actually a drop down menu like this, right? But then you select it and that is the button, so it immediately sends it to the room that you click. I could like sketch out those buttons. We've seen them on the internet, they exist. I don't know where to find one off the top of my head on like an interface I already have, but whatever, they're around. For now though, since there's only 2 rooms to move between, I think it's just gonna be a single move button. You don't have to select anything. Well, actually, I guess you do. You select the items you want to move, and then you click move for real or whatever, right? And it moves them. Yeah, but it's only going to go to the location that isn't the location you're in, right? We're either going from home to basement or basement to home. There's no like, oh, you're home. Where do you want it to go? It's only to basement, right? So, but anyway, let's start coding that thing up at long last. I guess since I'm already in the UI, I'm going to do that in the UI. Just to get the basics out. So before trashing, seems like a reasonable time, we're going to add a new container here that's going to be if the mode equals mode enum moving, which doesn't exist yet, but we can add it real quick. Moving. And these aren't enumerators that are important for storing stuff in the database. They're just for keeping the state and keeping it tidy so that I don't type the wrong thing, right? I know what they are. I know what the values are. And I can say, right, unlike in PHP, I can say, no, this function takes an inventory mode enum value. There's the only ones allowed, no other values, right? Whether or not, you saw in PHP, it would be like, oh, this equals 0, this equals 1, right? How these are implemented under the hood, I think it probably does do numbers increasing. You can also assign to strings if you want. What the default implementation is, I don't know, and I don't need to care. It's great. It's probably numbers because that would be efficient. But again, I trust that Angular or TypeScript rather, has figured out the most efficient thing to do there. We're also going to want up here a button for moving. So we'll say do move, and this is going to be move ... And when you click on move, whoops, like when you click on trash, right? Do move, similar thing. It's interesting actually, these functions are starting to look awfully similar. Then we go to moving. I think it's because some of them do have additional logic. Maybe they don't. Are these it? Feed, cook, move, and trash. They all do the, oh, browse. Browse does more. That's why I broke them out. Because it also needs to unselect. If you go into browse mode, yeah, unselect any items that may have been selected. That's what it does. In theory, any item you click could do that, but why waste the time? I mean, we could just check that. I guess what I'm getting at is like, why do we have 4 functions that say exactly the same thing? Why not just make it like do change mode and take the mode, and then we would always have this. We would always pass the changed mode. And then we could also have a check that says, oh, and if the mode is browsing, then do this logic. Let's do that. So this will be do change mode, and we want a mode, and the mode had better be emotinum, just like we were talking about. It's going to set it to that mode, and if the mode equals that mode, I just didn't want to lose the mode, then we do that. If we switch to browsing, then we clear the stuff. Great. I guess it does make it a little longer here now, because now I have to say, I mean, whatever, it's not that many. It's going to be inventory enum mode cooking. Well, I don't know. Now we've just moved a bunch of logic out here. I don't know. Moving and trashing. Is that right? Yeah. And then, yeah, these all go to browsing. So I don't know. In some ways, it seems like we just moved the code from one place to another. So I don't know if we, I don't know if that was a net gain. That may have been not the most efficient use of a function. I don't know. I don't know. If it nets to 0, I guess I'm okay with that. I won't undo it. It's fine. It does feel a little silly. I think this is better, rather than, we don't want 4 functions that are all the same. So now we have a move, and we go into move mode, which doesn't tell us anything. We don't have the cancel button because I didn't do that, but we can do that pretty easily. This, I think, is the most similar. So we're going to say moving. Select the items to move. Then click move again. Move. And the other thing to keep in mind, actually, is you shouldn't see this as an option unless you have the basement. So let's do that as well. ngIf equals allow moving. Allow moving. Defaults to false. I don't know. I think it's gonna have to be specified, but I think most places it's always gonna be true. The only place, because if you're in the basement, we don't need to ask whether or not you can move. We know that you have the basement. You're there, obviously you can move. The only place where it's gonna be a question is if you're at home and you have no pots, right? Then we don't know. But even if I add, again, a volcano or throwing things into space or whatever, when you're at those locations, obviously you're allowed to move between locations. Actually, what this is going to need to be eventually is a list of locations that you can move things to, and if that list is empty, then whatever. Again, I'll worry about that when/if more locations are added. I don't think it's worth going through the effort. Like, for the foreseeable future, they're not going to be more. It's possible that we'll go months, years without additional item locations, so I'm not going to do the extra work for a feature that I don't even know is coming. So a Boolean, I think, is fine, is what I'm saying. But what we need to do here is allow moving is if the user has unlocked the basement, if that's not null. Is user, yeah, it's in the home component, so that should be good. Only if you've unlocked the basement. And we should be able to test that. Let's see. I'll change it in the database afterwards to let's work. Okay, so we have a move action. It lets us select things. This won't, because it doesn't know what to do in this mode. We haven't coded up inventory for that, but that's okay. What I'd like to test now, let's go back into my local inventory, find users. I want to take away my basement now. Copy that so I can put it back. And if I reload this, I shouldn't have it because I haven't unlocked the basement, right? So I shouldn't have that move button. We can also test. Oh, I already did, I think. I should get kicked out of the basement if I try to go there because I don't have it. Actually, yeah, it throws me back to the home page because I don't have a basement. Great, so it's not listed. Fantastic. Let's put this back in. And now I should be allowed back in the basement. And when I reload the home, I should open this button. Oh my gosh, this is all taking much longer than expected. I'm sorry. Is this interesting? Gosh, I don't know. I've been thinking about, I can't help it, right? I'm doing this part-time. I would love, it would be amazing, it would be a dream if I could do Poppy Seed Pets full-time again. I just don't know how to realize that dream. I think something like Patreon, and I think coding live on like streaming coding would be the thing to do. I mean, I'm already using a program meant for doing streaming. There's a start streaming button right here. I just have to hook it up, and I've hooked it up before. I think that's something I would do. That would be like a paid thing. But I don't know. Maybe people, if I'm worried about the videos being uninteresting now, that's not solved right by having it be a paid feature. Then it's like, why would I pay for a thing that you think is boring? I don't know. I'm hoping this isn't boring. That's why I'm doing it. I should just ask if anyone's watched. I don't know. Anyway, okay, here's my creamsicle Desi Croina. We've got the move. It doesn't work as mentioned. We can fix that up pretty easily. So that would be on inventory in the basement. Do click item. That's the one. This is another kind of interesting function that's copied between the two. Right, like this is where it should be a component. Because I've said, it's only 3 lines I'm copying, right? These 3. So it's like, I don't need to make that a component. But actually, it's not 3 lines. It's 3 lines and these 20 that also end up copied, in which I'm now going to change in 2 places. I think we've done enough of that refactoring. Maybe I'll do the rest of that on my own time, so you don't have to see me pull out the things into a new component again. Yeah, that should probably be changed, and but I won't do it now because we've already done enough of that, and I'm concerned. So that's another reason it'd be great to have live, because then people would say, no, I do want to see that, or yeah, that's bullshit and I don't care. Like, that would be great feedback to have. That's an advantage doing things live. So, okay, we should be able to click on items. Again, it's not going to do anything when you click on the thing. Actually, it's probably horribly connected to trash for real. It sure is, which is a horrible do move for real. We don't want to accidentally trash your items. I mean, I wasn't going to move for real. All right, and yeah, I was going to console log like, no, you'd implemented, but we don't need to do that. We can put this in for now. And let's see what happens. And it's going to be a very similar function to this. It'll be like, find the selected items, find their IDs. Is the length 0? Okay, get out of here. Okay, we're waiting. Call a function. And that function is going to be, where do you want to move to? I mean, yeah, you know what? Let's just, it's going to be this exact same thing, except we're going to say inventory move to, and we're going to move to, what is the target room? That's a great question. That's something we're going to have to pass in. So we'll do like this dot, I don't know, gosh, move to location, I guess. What do we want to call that variable? It's like, because the name of it is like the location to move items to, but that feels a bit long. I guess we'll say like move destination? I don't know. It's such a weird word. I don't know. Location to move to. That's what it's going to have to be. I can't think. I don't want it to be so weird that it's like not clear. So location to move to, and that is of type move. Or what was it? Location enum? Yep. Again, helping us out because now we're going to have to do a location enum. No default value. You definitely have to specify that because when you're at home, it's going to need to be the basement. When you're in the basement, it's going to have to be home. We don't want to make any assumptions. When it's the volcano, whatever. Well, when it's the volcano, this will be different. But again, we don't even know that there's going to be a volcano, so it's fine. What's this? What happened here? Did I not copy everything I meant to? Move to. Error is an error. Huh, I don't know how that happened. Apparently I failed to copy everything. Weird. Okay. There's location to move to. And so again, from home, where's the location to move to? Why do you indent so far? I can fix that on my own time. The location to move to is use the location enum, which you don't have here right now, but yeah, it's guessing anyway. Should be the basement because we're currently at home. Location enum, same thing. We need to have this silly business here. My add, I want import. I'm pretty sure location enum. Did I do the same thing and not make it a export enum location enum? Why are you so confused? I don't know. I'm going to do it manually, I guess, because it's confused. Okay, don't know why it was having those issues, but fine. Let's go to the basement. Same deal. We're going to want, oh look, we don't use it. Location, that's surprising. Huh. Okay, location enum equals location enum. That time it did it. Oh, was it already there? It may have already been there. Okay, but anyway, on the basement, then we want to say, in that case, where you're moving to is home. And again, what this does is call inventory move to, which doesn't exist. So this is finally, we get to make the thing where you can move items around. And I think with that soft cap in place, I don't know if this is going to be like too annoying, but I don't think I want you to move items from the basement into your house if you're over the 100 soft cap. Again, admitting that items can get in your inventory anyway, pets might bring them home. You can prepare items where you combine two things and you get three things out of it or something, right? There's various ways to go over the limit. You open a box, right? A box only takes one, but it spits out like 10 items or something, right? So there are ways to go over the limit, but I really want to minimize the ways. Again, it's a performance thing. The house will run with all those extra items in your house, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case that is causing the timeout to happen, because what it does mechanically, if your house is full, as we say, fine, the pets aren't going to take actions to put more items in your house. They're going to craft to reduce the count, but crafting is actually where it has to load up the whole inventory and consider all those combinations. So that's actually the worst case scenario, but we do want to move the player to having fewer pets. So, if we were thinking 100% for performance, it would be they only bring home things instead of ever trying to craft, right? But that would just exacerbate, why can't I say that word? Anyway, that would just make the problem worse. And now I'm upset. Exacerbate, it's just exacerbate, right? Oh my gosh, hey look, there's a solution for this, you guys. It's called, I'm a nerd and have exacerbate. It is exacerbate. Oh, it just feels bad to say, exacerbate. Yeah, anyway, great, fun times, we're learning. Let's code up this move to thing. Oh my gosh, and then I need to stop and eat dinner and probably hang out with friends. Inventory controller. We're going to have a move to. So it's similar to throwaway. Again, it is very similar. So let's just do it. I'll just copy the throwaway, but it's going to be move to. And you have to move to a location where, again, we had this with, what was I don't remember where that was used last time. But I did have a location, where we had these requirements. It's at the top of the inventory controller. It should be a post. We're making changes, so it should be post. So we'll say this is move inventory. Specify location. It should be a number. in location. And we can do that thing up top too that we do again up here is you had better specify a location. I think we can also do the thing we do of preparing. I guess we don't care. If you throw out multiple items, right? If you talk to the API directly and throw out, oh, sorry, this isn't for throwing out, this is moving anyway. Yeah, if you somehow select items from multiple locations and put them all in the same location, I don't care. And again, we might make an interface that lets players do that anyway, so fine. So we don't need to do that check like with preparing foods, right? The only reason we need it for prepare is because I don't like the ambiguity of where does the food go, right? If you selected things from multiple locations, that's just a confusing situation, which again, maybe is resolved later. So find all your inventory, get them. If it has the, okay, so this is if you were throwing items out, but the item has a put outside for the bugs, then we count it as putting a bug outside. We don't need that logic here, clearly. Also, that's interesting. That means you can move bugs between rooms in your house. I almost don't want to let you do that. That might be something I code up later of having certain items that refuse to be moved or something. As like a property of the item explicitly, not just like based on the fact that, right? Like this is a little janky of saying, oh, if it has the action of put outside, then we could say you can't move it, but I don't want to do that. So we're not going to remove the items. We're going to change where they live. So we set location and we set it to be the location that was given to us. And that's all we have to do. Sometimes can be found. You have to give a valid location. We get all your items. I guess the only other thing to check, as mentioned, is if you're moving more items to the house, then you have space in the house. So we can do that. So if user get max inventory, yep, is less than user, oh, there's a thing for this. You have to count it up. House to full, items in house. How do we calculate items in house? By doing that. Sure, we can do that again. And that literally gets, just a count. It just gets a number, it counts them up. Yeah, cool. So if user max inventory is less than the items in the house plus the number of items you're trying to move, but also we only need to make that check if the location is the home, the location that you're moving to, right? So if you're moving locations into the house, and let's reverse this because it makes a little more sense to me. The items you have in your house plus the count of your inventory would be greater than the items you can have in your house, then we have a problem. And that's the little logic we need. And we will throw an unprocessable entity. We will say, you do not have enough space in your house. And here's a funny thing that can happen. You could hit the API directly. I said we were going to use Insomnia to do this, but we never have. It's not necessary. We've done it all in the UI. And I don't think, if it was more complicated, I might be inclined to test things here, but it's not super complicated. That's the thing we need to inventory. Okay. What could happen is you could like select 5 items from your house and 1 item from your basement and say, move them all to my house. And it'll say, oh, you're putting 6 items in your house, right? Which is not actually what's happening because 5 are already there. I'm not even going to check. Again, if you're poking around at the API and you do that shit and it complains and says there aren't enough items in your house, that's your own fault for like, I don't know, operating outside the UI. I'm not, right? That's not going to like screw up the data. I could understand arguments to be like, well, we should do it because maybe we'll make other interfaces or something, but whatever. I'm not worried about it. It's such a minor thing. And it's only going to happen again if you're like fiddling around. Yes, and when you use this legitimately in the basement, if you select, yeah, it's fine. I was going to say maybe on the front end we could detect and just not even let you click the button, you know, to make the API request, but we'd have to make an API request to find out how many items in your house anyway, so whatever. So it's not worth it. We will do this, and that's just me, I don't know, being OCD in arguably the wrong direction. Removing those parens, those braces. No, it's fine. I'm leaving it. Increment stat, items thrown away. Not true, you didn't throw items away in this case. We do want to flush the database. think this will work. Right, we don't need to count user stats. We can clean that up. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see if this works. That would be great if it did. So we have a couple purple candies. And we're going to move them. This text should probably be fixed up. I might change that to say like to basement or something like that. You know, I can do that on my own time. But let's see if this works. Pending, pending. Oh, it indicated that a reload needed to happen. And it looks like they're not there. Oh my God. Let's go to the basement. It fucking works. Oh no, don't throw it out. Move it. Move the rusty rapier into my house. You do not have space in your house. Oh my God, that might be true. I accidentally tested it. Let me see. Oh, no, it wouldn't have been true. I was only moving one. So that should have worked only just. If the location is home and the items in your house plus the count of the inventory IDs, doesn't matter, we've confirmed that they're equal, is greater than the maximum inventory, which should be 100, then complain. It shouldn't have been greater, it should have been just equal to. Let me go back, maybe my house shouldn't have changed. Did my pet craft or something? Let's try this again. Move this. You do not have enough space in your house. Okay, so in these cases, this is very interesting. Let's, what was it trying to do here? It's fast, it's not faster, I don't know. Let's set it up here because I said we were going to do this. So let's make a thing. We're going to duplicate this, but we're going to call it move inventory to house. So we have inventory move to 0, and I think that is my bear ID, LU something, yep. And the JSON data needs to be this. It needs to be, that's what we want to move. So, and it's a post. Let's send this and we should get the same result. This will be easier for testing the responses. Bad JSON. Okay, fine. I guess that's true. Is that true? Looks like pretty good JSON to me. What are you talking about? Oh, because, yeah, that's true. JSON, strictly speaking, you need to quote everything. Okay. You don't have enough space in your house. Great. Why is that? So here's where it's more helpful to have this view of things is I'm going to throw in a little thing like this. We're going to just echo out some stuff and see what it thinks is going on. I want to know, what do you think is items in house? What do you think is the count of my inventory? And what do you think is my user get max inventory? And then we'll just stop there and see what we get. 105 items in my house. I think I might know what's going on. One item that I asked to move, my max is 100. So what's going on is right here, and where location equals house location, I guess we'll say. We're going to want to change that in the other place as well. Right, so it's getting all the items, not just the ones in the house. So let's run this and confirm that it works now. We should have 99 here, and now it should succeed. Great, a little bit of debugging. The place that I copied this code from, again, where I was like, oh, how does items in house work? Probably, let's set this up the right way. And I thought about this when I copy paste, but was like, I just won't say anything, no one will notice, but let's do it now. This is exactly why it should be done, is we should put it in the repository for inventory to just get that count. So yeah, we'll make a new function called public function find items, or count items in house. We'll say count items in house for a given user. That is true. And it's this, and we don't need to sign it. We can just return it. And what are you freaking out about? Okay, and then items in house. I could imagine passing in the location, but whatever. All we need right now is house. So I think this is what we want. So if we go back here, we say count items in house for the user. And then that other place where I was using items in house that I found, where was that? Here it is, items in house. We'll do the same thing. We can just count, and that's the user. Count items in house, pass the user object. And now it can be grouped up with all the other things. That's nicer. That's just what I should have done to begin with. I mean, and honestly, anytime, any query building work you're doing, anytime you're using a query builder, it probably just needs to go into a repository. That's not like a 100%, but it's like a 90-something% rule, like good rule of thumb. If you're doing query building work, probably it ought to be in a repository. And now we have just seen why. I copy pasted logic and I knew when I was doing it, and I tried to get away with it, and I didn't. Good. Because maybe that'll burn the lesson into my mind better, and I won't be that silly in the future. Okay, so now let's actually test this here. I should be allowed to move the rusty rapier. Succeed. I think it succeeded. Okay, and now if we go back to my house, oh my gosh, guys, the feature is not complete yet because it's complete enough. I'm going to stop the video here, but just for completion's sake, it's not complete because there's no way to actually get the basement, right? So we've coded up this whole basement feature, but there's no way for players to actually get a basement. I think what I might do is code it up as a reward for donating things to the museum. Once you've donated 100 items or something. Like 100, yeah, 100. I think 100 is a good limit. Let's see on the real site if we go to the museum. Let's see how many people have 100. Maybe it should be 75. I don't know. Who are the top donors? I don't know, 16 people can just get it? These people are really close? I don't think 100 is unreasonable. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to code that up on my own time. Again, I need to stop talking. I think a friend is waiting for me. I think I've been a bad friend, so I'll check my phone. Oh my gosh, that was a super long video. I'm kind of sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I hope it was, whatever. That was the point of this thing. I'll ask people. I want feedback. I want to know if this is interesting. I want to know if people are learning. If they're not, why? Is there a way to change it to make it better in any any dimensions, more interesting, more educational, more whatever, right? More insight into the game's workings, right? There's a lot of ways, reasons you might be interested in watching a video like this if you are. So yeah, I'll just have to solicit feedback from people. So if you're watching and you watch this far, please give me that feedback. I seriously would super appreciate it. And if you don't tell me, you're going to hear from me anyway, because I'm going to be posting on like Discord and everything else. So anyway, thanks again. Hopefully we'll have this new basement thing out soon. And yeah, goodbye.